Activists, artists, and citizens from nearly all walks of life and perspectives have struggled to reach beyond the limits of mainstream media. Whether it's Fox News or the New York Times, Rush Limbaugh or Brian Williams, people say they are tired of being talked to or overlooked. They seek to exercise their own rights to free speech, to fulfill a need to hear from independent voices. They exercise their rights and fulfill their needs by creating new avenues for speech, by inventing new forms of communication, and by seizing the microphone to speak to their community. This movement did not begin and does not end with the internet or social media. It is a movement as old as the dawn of mass media. This series will highlight the contributions of alternative media and the challenges citizens face in a political environment that seems to reward only those with the most money, a political environment that does not necessarily reward those with the best ideas or those who serve the critical information needs of their community. We're looking beyond mainstream media. I'm Mark Lloyd, the director of the Media Policy Initiative here at the New America Foundation. We're going to have a conversation about Pacifica Radio, specifically WPFW Radio here in Washington, D.C., and the founding of Pacifica Radio. We will interview Askia Muhammad, a legendary news reporter and now the news director of WPFW here in Washington, and a Haitian immigrant, Yves Pontejour, who has been broadcasting with Pacifica for over 25 years and is now chairman of the local station board of WPFW. But first, a short clip from the documentary KPFA on the Air by filmmakers Veronica Selver and Sharon Wood. It's about the founding of KPFA, the first Pacifica station. It's narrated by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Alice Walker.
Wonder when my baby
In 1943, Lou Hill received a medical release for spinal arthritis. He headed to Washington, D.C. to lobby on behalf of conscientious objectors. And with his radio idea in mind, he joined the world of network broadcasting.
My baby's coming home.
And now let me tell you about McTavish's Skinless Weenies. So long,
He was
so
appalled.
pink, so flavor-rich.
Commercial interests colored every program, even the news.
SO reporter bringing you last-minute headline news.
Dear Roy,
Hot off the wires.
last night I resigned from the Blue Network, and I'm very glad to be out of that particular doldrum. In brief,
In letter after letter to Roy Finch, Hill elaborated his plan for a radically different kind of radio, one that promoted ideas, not products.
He had this idea, subscribe, let the people themselves subscribe to the station and support it that way. And we were constantly arguing about it because I asked myself, would I send in money if I could get it free? And I had to say, maybe not. See, I didn't realize that the thing was going to be so valuable that people would pay for it even if they could get it free. You see, that's what I didn't catch on.
Hallelujah, something's cooking. The rates and ovation knows that I'm in a state of ease.
Hill waited until the war's end to move forward with his radio project.
Tell the nation my guys come back. Just
Newly married, he and his wife headed out to the one place where they thought it might succeed.
Joy Hill.
San Francisco was a very alive place to be at that point. There were ideas just floating in the air to be pulled out, it felt like. It was really quite exciting.
Small but fiercely cosmopolitan, the San Francisco Bay Area was a haven for utopian dreamers, blue-collar radicals, artists, and anarchists. Here, the poet Kenneth Rexroth presided over a freewheeling club of intellectuals calling themselves the Libertarian Circle.
Matthew Lazar.
And Lewis Hill immediately knew that he had to go to these people because most of them had been conscientious objectors, or almost all of them had been conscientious objectors during the war, and they were a very creative crowd. And he showed up unannounced one day at one of the Libertarian Circle meetings.
Eleanor McKinney.
It was at Richard Moore's house in San Francisco, his apartment. I believe it was an anarchist discussion with Kenneth Rexroth. And the place was packed.
Richard Moore.
I remember questioning Lou with him. edge of contempt in my voice. I mean, radio is a ridiculous thing. This isn't political activity. Political activity is in the barricades. And as armchair anarchists, that's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's, that's what we said.
But Richard Moore was won over by Lou's vision that night, as was Eleanor McKinney, a young producer for NBC Radio. And with a few more recruits, they began the Pacifica Foundation in 1946, setting out, in Lou Hill's words, to create a Pacific world in our time.
Matthew
Hill
Lazar.
began typing out, one after another, these little fundraising prospectuses. If you look at the early KPFA fundraising literature, it doesn't just talk about radio stations. It talks about starting magazines, schools. At one point, they were even talking about a chain of restaurants. They saw themselves as part of a mass world movement for a peaceable world.
After 3 years, they'd raised less than half the money they'd hoped for. But on April 15, 1949, undeterred, they gathered in their makeshift studio for the first day of broadcasting.
Eleanor McKinney.
We didn't feel it was real. I mean, you do all this work and raise the money and make a decision to start it on a shoestring. And that day, everything was at last minute till on the air. And then Lou stepped up to the microphone, and it moved us all.
One thing I understand is the fact that information is power. Because you have to educate people to communication. You have to transmit the message to them and to provoke their mind and in order to have a reaction.
Well, why is radio so important? I mean, why?
That's the mass medium. That's how you can reach the biggest number of people that you can, or otherwise, get access to. That's why radio is important, especially in our community where you don't have that sort of things here, like in Miami or in New York, in Boston, where you may have many other mediums, many other radio stations, but here in Washington, it's only only one. So it's very critical for the community and to reach them. So that's why one of the things that I look for and I look out. But when I went to college, at one point I thought of going into communications, but I said, no, because I don't think they would hire me 24 hours, because I will tell them a lie is a lie. You're lying, and But that's my nature. But with WPFW, I feel comfortable because I know I'm in a place where I'm telling the truth. I'm giving people a voice that they don't have, and that's really what makes it different.
Now, is there a difference between what the Pacifica Radio National does or did and what WPFW does? Is there a distinction between those two?
There's no difference. It's the same goals, the same objective. The mission is the same. Mm-hmm. It's just that the market can be different.
So the community that you're serving is different.
Exactly, can be different. Yeah. But we all strive to the same goal, and we all strive for the same mission, and that's what we want to accomplish. And the key word there is alternative, and that's what and giving people a voice that they do not have.
So, all right. So, explain to me, Askia, if you could, what is the real difference between, say, a talk show on NBC or CBS or a local television station, or a news program on NBC or CBS or Today Show or something like that, and what you do? What is the real difference between the service that you provide and what I might be able to get from Good Morning America?
Well, once I heard someone talk about America's general interests. And what are America's general interests? General Electric, General Dynamics. Those are the general interests, and that's what's different. You don't have that sort of editor looking over your shoulder, which kind of prescribes some of what you say and are thinking. to a certain extent, Philip Agee, the former CIA guy, said that at some point when you, in media, okay, you go in, you say, well, I'll just mouth this because I don't really believe it, but it's to keep my job. And at some point, you start to internalize it, and you just go along with it. And why fight it? Why swim against the stream? And pretty soon, you're a believer in whatever it is you thought you would never believe when you took this job. And so that's the difference in WPFW and Pacifica. I think we are, in a sense, and to Pacifica's credit, at the creation of WPFW, it said it should reflect the local interests. It should reflect the local population, which is, at that time, primarily an African-American population, Chocolate City, as it was called. And so we have at the core the mission that is related to jazz and Caribbean music and blues and R&B and those kinds of things which you don't find at other Pacifica stations. And it has made WPFW what I would consider the Village Voice on the Potomac. The Village Voice on the Potomac is not the city paper. It's not the weekend section of the Washington Post. It's WPFW because it does have that local flavor, that soulful kind of outlook that's just, you know, you come to the same conclusions as Jack O'Dell told me one time. It's not that black people see things differently. Black people just see things sooner than other people in this society. And so,
one of the things that's always been fascinating to me about the services you provide is that you provide service to so many different kinds of black people. Eve, particularly with the program that you used to put on, your service to the Haitian community is very different than the sort of programs that you would see on WCHUR or some. So could you talk about serving those particular communities?
Exactly. What I do is really give them a taste of home. It's kind of bringing home back here for 2 hours on Saturday night. That's basically what I do. And not only for them, but also we try to bring other people, the non-Haitians folks, give them a perspective of Haiti that they would not have gotten anywhere else. You know, make them clearly understand the issues, because sometimes they don't have that progressive view of what's going on in Haiti.
I would guess you covered the troubles regarding Aristide very differently.
Exactly. Aristide, give them the other side, not what you would hear on CNN or, you know, NBC or CBS. No, we go into detail. And I have a philosophy, because I call a cat, a dog, a dog. So I don't, you know, I don't hide it, you know, and and that's my nature, and also that's why people really appreciate it too. Once in the community, if they hear something, they say, well, did you hear, did Eve say that? If Eve said it, I believe it. So that's you know, that's the nature of what.
And that's true across the board, I have to say. It's a different perspective and a different kind of content. Yesterday I was listening to a program, WPFW had something, and I've forgotten what the program was, but I heard the name John Coltrane mentioned. And I dare say, and I heard another program today, not a music show, but a discussion of some sort. And I heard John Coltrane's name mentioned again. And I dare say that of all the radio and television stations in Washington, which amount to 60 or so broadcast outlets, this is the only one where you will hear John Coltrane's name mentioned, or the perspective that Eve is reflecting about Haiti, or about the Caribbean, or about so many other issues. The only place you'll hear John Coltrane's name mentioned in a month, in 2 months, maybe on NPR, maybe someone will say Coltrane somewhere in 2 or 3 months. But this is the kind of content that you hear on WPFW on an ongoing basis. Not just, I use his name as an easy example, but then on every subject, there Bradley Manning before there was Bradley Manning. You know, just all of these kinds of stories in depth that you don't hear elsewhere. And that's true with WPFW. That's not true at other broadcast outlets. I don't know that people necessarily appreciate that to the extent that they should, but that is really the reality.
One of the things that whether it is WPFW or WBAI or the wide variety of Pacifica stations around the country, there almost always seem to be a set of troubles, or at least in modern times, facing Pacifica stations. Now, one of the things that I connect that with is the fact that you actually have more community engagement in the operation of the station than, say, a top-down management style would. And whether we like it or not, sometimes democracy creates problems. So could you talk a little bit about, and Askia, so since you've been with this station the longest, where is WPFW now, and where do you see the future of that station, given the set of troubles that you're facing?
I've counted once recently, we may have had in the last, since I've been around, maybe 10, 12 general managers, maybe 10, 15 or more program directors. But some of the programmers, like Eves, has been here since 1984. No general manager has been here that long. So these management issues will resolve themselves in one way or another. I think there is a conflict or question or issue that is yet to be resolved, and perhaps I think is a good tension in Pacifica. That is it to be activist controlled, or is it to be professional broadcasters? And so you have the activists who, but then if it's all activist controlled, the only people who can afford to work are the people with trust funds. If it's all professional, then you start firing people who perhaps speak not quite as correctly there as you would prefer. And so this tension remains. I think it works itself out to the best. Hopefully there will be a business model that provides, I think, as we move forward, we need a business model that provides enough revenue so that as a going concern, to use the auditor's type expression, as a going concern, Pacifica has a future rather than strictly being a teetering on the brink of disaster on any given day.
Well, let's ask the chairman of the board.
Well, I have not only have been chairman for the past 6 months, but also I've been there for 29 years. So you're talking about crisis, I've seen crisis. And I can also tell you that right now we are also in crisis, But the thing about it is the fact that we always find a way to overcome. We always find a way to solve it, to save the radio station. And like Askia said, whether we get rid of the general managers, we get rid of the program directors, but the programmers, the volunteers, that base still remain constant. And we always solve it, and I'm very confident that the situation that we are in right now, we want to solve it too. And believe me, by next year, we probably will not be talking about it anymore. And we will be moving forward.
That's from the chairman of the board.
Yes.
Yes. Well, that's always good to hear. So one of the other challenges I think that not only Pacifica faces, but that radio faces in general, is this notion that somehow radio is old media, that broadcasting is old, that it really doesn't matter anymore, that why even care about it? So could you talk a little bit about what it is that WPFW, that radio, that what you do for the community, that may be even just a little bit beyond just providing broadcast service?
I think, first of all, it doesn't matter it's radio or it's any other medium, you always have to move with technology. You have to embrace it and work with it, no matter what we are doing. And we have to also be ready to adapt ourselves to any changes that occur. And so we know that, and we're using, whether it's internet, whether it's Skype, whatever you call it. But one of the key things that will remain the same, it's that constant dialogue between the broadcaster and the community. That you cannot change that. And this is very important. This is very critical to our survival and to any medium, especially radio, because people want that dialogue. They want a place where they can express what they feel, their opinion. They want a place where they can go and they feel that they are being heard, that their message is being, gone through, and that other people are listening. And so that's what, they want. For example, we have one of our co-broadcasters here, Dr. Boer, does a show on the air, health show. But one of the things is that dialogue. You can see, or sometimes how passionate people are telling you their story. And that radio, with radio, you can't change that. And no matter what they do, no matter what technology comes, that won't be changed.
Did the computer, did the internet make Gutenberg obsolete? Of course not. He established a place. So the concept of movable type is still valuable, and the printed word still has some value. Even if it's on a Kindle, it is using these letters and what have you. So, okay, I've got an iPod. My iPod, you can play music for 45 hours and not hear the same song twice. And I have not even touched the iPod in 6 months. I know other people have thousands and thousands of songs on their iPods, but the iPod will not tell you today is Abbie Lincoln's birthday. The iPod will not remind you that on this day in 1963, June 12th, 1963, on that date to come, on June 12th, 1963, Medgar Evers was assassinated. It will not tell you that and remind you that in any way that touches your soul and says, oh yeah, I really wanted to be reminded about that. And so, yeah, okay, so the same with television. Netflix is going to make broadcast television obsolete. But that's hooey. What is valuable is the origination of content. And so at a radio station like WPFW in Pacifica, if you look at the archives, the oldest archives of any broadcast medium in the country of radio audio tapes, if you look at that, they originated programs that were just totally unique, and we still do that today. And so it's the origination of content. It's not just having an iPod and I don't want to hear this, that, or the other. It is the origination of content. And this is what radio calls broadcasters to do. And this is what makes it special, because yes, there is that connection between the broadcaster and the listener and the community. And it's now, it's not music. When I lived in San Jose, what was that, 45 years ago, they had, someone invented what they called it, the IGM. This was Silicon Valley. IBM was just, you didn't have a personal computer in these days. But someone invented what they call the IGM machine for radio stations, the International Good Music Machine. And it would take songs and play them in sort of a computer rotation, so you did not need an announcer. Well, whatever happened to the IGM? Not that the iPod will ever be obsolete, but then it's like you want that connection. You want somebody to tell you it's raining outside. And so radio is not going to be outmoded. Television is not going to be obsolete, no more than the Gutenberg Bible will ever be obsolete.
And do I understand it correctly that one can get WPFW on the internet?
Oh, definitely, WPFW.org. That's very easy.
And broadcast stations are licensed by the FCC, yes, because the broadcast medium belongs to the people of the United States. And so they're licensed to broadcast via these for a period of time, because you don't own this. And if you mess up, you can lose your license. And so, but these licenses have huge value. If they didn't, then even though Joe Albritton says, I don't want to be in it anymore, or his son, he's not giving it away, and someone will pay valuable money because it is still much more accessible. You need a $14 transistor radio, and there you have it. Yeah. Not only do you have it, but wherever you go, you have the local medium.
Our family was in a total panic this last crisis, that among other things, that we would change our Sunday mornings entirely. Toulouse WPFW. But I'd like you to explain a little bit about whether you have deliberately avoided foundation money and other sorts of an educational institution, for instance, funding or partnerships or something or other. I'm not talking about corporate sponsorship, to give you a little bit more stability than has been historic.
I think the policy is, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken, I think the Pacifica policy is that we cannot acknowledge contributions to programming from someone for programming. So if you give money to Combit Lakai, you cannot say on Combit Lakai, this is sponsored by Ben's Chili Bowl. You can't say that. And so what contributor wants to give money and not be associated with the idea that I gave money to make this happen? All you people who love this, love me. So I think that's the policy. We could probably get a boatload of money if people would give it anonymously. But who wants to give what Charles and David Koch are going to give anonymously? No, they don't care about Sid the Science Kid. They care about putting their brand in front of Sid's parents.
And every time that doesn't mean that the idea has not been raised or discussed at Pacifica. And it's been discussed, it's been raised. And each time it's got turned down, turned away. And a lot of folks said, oh, no, we're not going that route. We're going to remain, we're going to keep on doing what we're doing right now, because we don't want nobody to come and tell us exactly what to do.
The Pacifica National Board is a 24-member board that comprised of 4 from each signal area. That's 20 members and representatives of the Pacifica affiliates and others. And this year, the interim executive director was among us, and this question was raised. And it's like, it's off the table. If it's discussed, the Pacifica National Board will not countenance the idea of different funding streams. The idea of selling out is just too prevalent, and whatever those forces that are dug in, believing that, they're not going to have it. Now, I say that in the context of the 2010 audit by Martha and some auditing firm, that has all those letters after its name. Auditing firm did an audit of Pacifica, and I've used the expression going concern, and I've heard it used by others. In that audit, you go through 23 pages of, as Mr. T used to say, jibber jabber, and you get to the last paragraph. It says there's the auditing firm have a significant doubt or question as to whether or not the Pacifica Foundation can continue as a going concern. That is, financially, it's a miracle. You fed the multitude with 2 loaves of bread and 5 fish. How did you do it? You're making every month you make bricks with no straw. How are you slaves making these and building these pyramids? How are you doing it? At some point, I suspect it will come crashing, and it's like, okay, we got to do something. We're faced with ruin. We have to sell a license in order to save ourselves. What do we do? Maybe at that point, or short of that point, hopefully, someone will say, how can we address this in a responsible way? But we can't now even have the conversation as to what would be the responsible way to find an alternative funding source. Pacifica is loath to even have the conversation, and that's, I don't know what 2x4 is required to hit the mule upside the head to get the mule's attention, but